let's talk about a moment in time when the mirror that literature holds up to society didn't just crack, it completely shattered into a million pieces. So what on earth happened? Have you ever picked up a book from that era and wondered, why is this so complicated? Why did storytelling suddenly get so fragmented? Well, we're going to dig into the massive forces that totally rewrote the rules. To really understand why that mirror shattered, we first have to see what it looked like when it was still in one piece. So let's rewind to the world right before everything changed. The Victorian era, it was really built on confidence. It was a time when pretty much everyone believed in steady, upward progress. Science, industry, society, it all seemed to be getting better and better. Things felt stable, you knew it was right and wrong, and literature, well, it reflected that sense of order. But that world, it was about to get hit by a perfect storm of change, like nothing anyone had ever seen before. The very foundations began to crack, and the whole structure started to just crumble. So what were these forces? You can think of them as three huge earthquakes hitting all at once: the unbelievable destruction of two world wars, the dizzying, head-spinning speed of modernization, and a scientific revolution that completely flipped our understanding of reality on its head. And what you get is this massive collision of worldviews. That old Victorian faith in progress, it slams right into the brutal reality of mass destruction. Social stability gets replaced by this constant nagging uncertainty. And moral certainty, it just dissolves into skepticism. All of a sudden, everything was up for grabs. The writer Bernard Shaw absolutely nailed this new mood. He said the new duty for everyone was to question, examine, and test every single thing you thought you knew. This need to question everything became the spirit of the age. You just couldn't take anything for granted anymore. Now, an earthquake of that size in culture was bound to cause a massive fracture in literature itself. And what's wild is that we can actually pinpoint the exact moment the ground split wide open. The year was 1922, and this wasn't just any other year. It was like a firewall in literary history. On one side, you have the old world, and on the other, something completely new, something radical. So why 1922? Because this was the year two literary bombshells were dropped: James Joyce's Ulysses and T.S. Eliot's poem The Wasteland. These works didn't just bend the rules of literature, they basically took the rulebook, tore it up, and set it on fire. It was a total break from tradition. And this timeline just shows it so clearly. In the early 1900s, the idea was art for life's sake. It was supposed to have a social purpose, to help people. But after that radical break in 1922, literature just withdrew. It became this modernist experiment, fragmented, internal, and, really intellectual. And this completely changed what it was like to be a reader. Before 1922, literature was mostly for everyone. It was clear, it was public. But post-1922 modernism, it became private, symbolic, and honestly, it was often written for a pretty small group of intellectual elites. A huge gap opened up between the artist and the public. Now, this big divide didn't just happen in a bubble. The decades that followed kept piling on even more social changes that reshaped what art could even be and who it was for. So right after the break, you get more pressure. In the 1930s, art becomes a political weapon in the fight against fascism. Then, after World War II, this really weird thing happens. People get more material comfort, but instead of being happy, there's a spiritual restlessness. And finally, the rise of mass media just changes everything, amplifying consumerism and a new kind of youth rebellion. And these three forces, consumerism, mass media, and youth rebellion, they became the new, powerful engines driving culture. They chipped away even more at traditional values and gave artists this brand new, often chaotic landscape to try and make sense of. So, after all this turmoil, where did that leave us? Well, it left a permanent legacy of fragmentation. It created a completely new kind of reflection in that mirror of art. The whole game changed. The dominant themes went from things like moral certainty and social order to fragmentation and alienation. The way stories were told went from being linear and clear to experimental and all over the place. And the focus shifted from the outside world to the inner psychological world of the individual. And this all points to the central paradox of the whole era. The 20th century had all this incredible material progress, but it seems like it came at the cost of spiritual certainty. It's like we gained so much power over the world, but we kind of lost our place in it.
Which brings us right back to where we started. In a world that had been shattered by war, science, and social chaos, literature just couldn't be a perfect, clear mirror anymore. It had to become a shattered one, reflecting back at us our own fragmented, uncertain, and totally modern selves.
And that leaves us with one last question to think about. I mean, we're also living in an age of dizzying change and uncertainty, right? So, what about our storytelling today? In our movies, our shows, everything we see online, how is it reflecting the world we live in right now?